Did you know that South Africa holds nearly 80% of the world's platinum reserves? A metal so strategic that modern technology, medicine, and the global automotive industry would collapse without it, or that some of the oldest human remains ever discovered were found on its soil, direct evidence that the story of humanity began there more than 3 million years ago, and that it was the only country in the world to develop nuclear weapons and then voluntarily dismantle them, walking away from a level of power most nations would never surrender. South Africa is far more than safaris and breathtaking landscapes. It is a land where humanity was born, where resources capable of moving the world lie hidden, and where decisions were made that reshaped global history. Get ready, because today you'll discover 50 astonishing facts about South Africa that will completely and forever change the way you see this extraordinary country. 50. 2 oceans, 1 country. South Africa is one of the very few countries on Earth where 2 major oceans collide. At Cape Agulhas, the officially recognized meeting point of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, cold Antarctic currents from the Atlantic crash into the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. This clash creates dramatic shifts in water temperature, wave patterns, and marine life distribution. On one side, you get kelp forests and cold water species. On the other, coral reefs and tropical fish. Sailors have feared this coastline for centuries because the opposing currents generate unpredictable waves and brutal storms. It's not just a symbolic border between oceans, it's an active, constantly shifting marine battlefield. 49. The Cape of Storms earned its name the hard way, before it was rebranded as the Cape of Good Hope. This infamous stretch of coastline was known as the Cape of Storms, and for good reason. Violent winds, rogue waves, and sudden weather changes made it one of the deadliest maritime routes in history. Thousands of shipwrecks litter the seabed off South Africa's coast, many still undiscovered. The unique geography funnels wind around the southern tip of Africa, amplifying storms that can rise seemingly out of nowhere. Even today, it's considered one of the most dangerous sailing zones on the planet. 48. Table Mountain is older than the Himalayas. Table Mountain isn't just iconic, it's ancient. The mountain's core rock is estimated to be over 600 million years old, making it far older than the Himalayas, the Alps, and even the Andes. While younger mountain ranges were thrust upward by tectonic collisions, Table Mountain is a remnant of an ancient plateau slowly carved down by erosion. Its perfectly flat top isn't a coincidence. It's the surviving surface of a vast landscape that once stretched far beyond modern Cape Town. Standing on it is like standing on a fragment of Earth's deep time history. 47. A mountain that makes its own weather. Table Mountain doesn't just sit under the clouds, it creates them. When moist air from the Atlantic is pushed upward by the mountain, it cools rapidly, forming the famous tablecloth cloud that spills dramatically over the edges. This orographic effect can cause sunshine in the city below, while the summit is shrouded in thick mist and strong winds. The phenomenon happens so often it's become one of Cape Town's defining visual features, and it directly influences local rainfall patterns and plant life. 46. One of the world's smallest but richest floral kingdoms. South Africa contains the Cape Floristic region, the smallest of the world's 6 floral kingdoms, yet it's by far one of the richest. Despite covering less than 0.5% of Africa's land area, it hosts nearly 9,000 plant species, about 70% of which exist nowhere else on Earth. This region includes the famous fynbos biome, adapted to nutrient-poor soils and frequent fires. Entire plant lineages evolved here in isolation, making it a botanical hotspot with global scientific importance. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe and leave a like to become an expert on the geography of our world. 45. The Karoo was once an inland sea. Today, the Karoo is a vast semi-desert interior, but hundreds of millions of years ago, it was submerged under a massive inland sea. Sediments from that ancient basin preserved one of the richest fossil records on Earth, including early mammal-like reptiles that eventually led to mammals. The Karoo Basin acts like a time capsule, recording multiple mass extinctions and climate shifts. It's one of the most important geological archives for understanding how life transitioned from reptiles to mammals. 44. South Africa's Big Hole is visible from space. In the city of Kimberley lies the Big Hole, the largest hand-dug excavation in human history. Excavated by tens of thousands of miners using nothing but picks and shovels, it reaches over 240 meters deep. The hole marks the birthplace of South Africa's diamond industry and permanently reshaped the region's geography. When mining stopped, groundwater slowly filled the pit, creating a deep, eerily still lake. It's a stark reminder of how human activity can leave geological scale scars. 43. The cradle of humankind humankind isn't just symbolic, it's literal. Just outside Johannesburg lies one of the most important paleoanthropological sites on Earth. The cradle of humankind has produced around 40% of all known hominin fossils, including some of the oldest and most complete early human ancestors ever found. The region's dolomite caves preserved bones for millions of years, protected from erosion and scavengers. This isn't just where humans lived, it's one of the places where humanity itself took shape. 42. A coastline shaped by diamonds. Along South Africa's west coast lies the Diamond Coast, where waves still deposit diamonds eroded from ancient inland sources. Over millions of years, rivers carried diamonds from deep inside the continent to the Atlantic, where ocean currents concentrated them along beaches and offshore gravel beds. Some of the world's richest marine diamond mines operate here, vacuuming the seabed for gems. Few places on Earth have such a direct geological pipeline from mantle to shoreline. 41. The Drakensberg is a volcanic graveyard. The towering Drakensberg Mountains were born not from collision, but from fire. Around 180 million years ago, massive volcanic eruptions flooded the region with lava, stacking layer upon layer of basalt. Over time, erosion carved the lava plateau into the dramatic cliffs and peaks seen today. These mountains form part of the Great Escarpment, a vast geological steppe that rings much of southern Africa. The Drakensberg isn't a single mountain range, it's the eroded edge of an ancient volcanic continent. 40. Southern Africa's highest waterfall isn't famous. The Tugela Falls, cascading down the Drakensberg, is often cited as the world's second highest waterfall, and during heavy rains, some measurements suggest it may even rival Angel Falls. Its multiple tiers plunge a combined total of nearly 950 meters. Unlike famous waterfalls fed by massive rivers, Tugela is highly seasonal, roaring to life after storms, and shrinking dramatically in dry periods. Its remoteness keeps it largely untouched, hidden in one of South Africa's most dramatic landscapes. 39. South Africa has a desert that blooms explosively. The Namakwaland region appears lifeless for most of the year, until rainfall triggers one of Earth's most dramatic natural events. For a few weeks, the desert erupts into a carpet of wildflowers stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Seeds lie dormant for years, waiting for just the right conditions. When they bloom, the transformation is so sudden and intense it's visible from space. It's one of the most extreme examples of ecological patience on the planet. 38. An ancient supercontinent left fingerprints everywhere. South Africa was once welded to Antarctica, India, Australia, and South America as part of Gondwana. Matching rock layers, fossils, and mountain formations still align across these continents. The breakup of Gondwana shaped South Africa's mineral wealth, coastline, and internal plateaus. When the land tore apart, magma surged upward, enriching the crust with gold, platinum, and diamonds. Much of South Africa's modern economy exists because of this ancient continental divorce. 37. One of Earth's richest gold deposits formed by chance. The Witwatersrand Basin, where Johannesburg now stands, holds the largest gold deposit ever discovered on Earth. This gold didn't form through volcanic veins like most deposits. Instead, it accumulated in ancient river systems over 2.5 billion years ago, long before oxygen filled the atmosphere. The sheer scale of this deposit reshaped global economics, migration, and politics, all because of rivers that flowed before complex life even existed. 36. A coastline that moves every year. South Africa's eastern coastline is constantly reshaped by powerful currents flowing down from the Indian Ocean. Beaches migrate, sandbars shift, and entire estuaries can change shape within decades. Some coastal towns have had to repeatedly rebuild infrastructure as the shoreline slowly advances or retreats. Unlike tectonic change, this is geography in motion on a human timescale. 35. A plateau higher than most people realize. Much of South Africa sits on a high interior plateau averaging over 1,000 meters above sea level. Cities like Johannesburg are higher than Denver, despite lacking surrounding mountains. This elevation affects everything from climate to athletic performance, creating cooler temperatures and thinner air than visitors expect. The plateau exists because southern Africa resisted erosion while surrounding regions were worn down, leaving the interior standing high like a stone table. 34. Rivers that don't reach the sea. Several South African rivers never make it to the ocean. Instead, they vanish into inland basins or evaporate before reaching the coast. The Orange River survives the journey, but many others fade into deserts or salt pans. This internal drainage reflects the country's arid interior and complex elevation patterns. Water here doesn't always follow the rules we expect. 33. One of the oldest deserts on Earth. The Namib Desert, stretching into northwestern South Africa, is considered the oldest desert on the planet, existing in some form for over 50 million years. While much of South Africa is semi-arid, this region has remained dry through massive climate shifts. Fog from the Atlantic sustains life where rain almost never falls. It's a place where geology, ocean currents, and atmosphere align to lock dryness in place. 32. Mountains that trap ancient art. The Drakensberg and Taterberg Mountains shelter thousands of sandrock art sites, some over 3,000 years old. The sandstone cliffs erode in a way that creates natural overhangs, protecting paintings from rain and sun. Geography didn't just shape the land here, it preserved human history. These landscapes acted as both canvas and vault. 31. A country shaped by edges. South Africa's most dramatic landscapes often sit along geological boundaries. Escarpments, fault lines, ancient shorelines, and erosion fronts. The country isn't defined by a single mountain range or river system, but by transitions. Flat plateaus drop suddenly into cliffs, deserts fade into wetlands, and oceans collide at its tip. South Africa's geography is less about one feature and more about where worlds meet. 30. A canyon that rivals the Grand Canyon. South Africa is home to one of the largest canyons on Earth, Blyde River Canyon. Often overshadowed by its American counterpart, it is actually one of the largest green canyons in the world. Carved by the Blyde River over millions of years, its sheer quartzite cliffs plunge more than 800 meters in places. Unlike many arid canyons, it's lush and alive, filled with subtropical forests, waterfalls, and one of the highest concentrations of plant species in southern Africa. The canyon forms part of the Drakensberg escarpment, marking a dramatic edge where the high plateau collapses into the lowveld below. 29. South Africa's mountains once touched Antarctica. The Cape Fold Mountains, which run parallel to the southern coastline, are the eroded remnants of a massive mountain chain formed when Gondwana collided with another ancient continent. These same folded rocks continue underground and reappear today in Argentina and Antarctica. The mountains you see in places like the Ciderberg and Swartberg are just the worn-down stumps of peaks that once rivaled the Himalayas in scale. Their folded layers are geological fingerprints of a time when continents were locked together. And 28. A coastline built by retreating ice ages without ice. South Africa never experienced direct continental glaciation, yet its coastline was heavily shaped by ice ages elsewhere on Earth. When massive ice sheets locked up water at the poles, sea levels dropped by over 120 meters. The continental shelf off South Africa was exposed, creating wide coastal plains that later drowned again as the ice melted. Ancient beaches, wave-cut platforms, and submerged river valleys now sit far offshore, silently recording global climate swings that never brought ice to Africa itself. 27. The meeting point of three major biomes. Few places on Earth host such sharp ecological transitions as South Africa. Within short distances, you can pass from Mediterranean-type fynbos to desert scrub to savanna. This happens because the country sits at the crossroads of major climate systems. Cold Atlantic currents, warm Indian Ocean waters, subtropical highs, and shifting wind belts. These overlapping influences fragment the landscape into ecological islands, each evolving its own species. It's why South Africa has extraordinary biodiversity packed into a relatively small area. 26. A river older than the landscape it crosses. The Orange River predates many of the landforms it flows through. As southern Africa slowly uplifted over millions of years, the river cut downward instead of changing course, slicing through rising terrain. This process, known as antecedent drainage, left the Orange flowing through deep gorges and rugged terrain that formed after the river itself already existed. In places, it acts like a geological saw, revealing layered rock histories exposed along its banks. 25. The Great Escarpment defines the country's shape. South Africa's most important landform isn't a single mountain, but a massive edge. The Great Escarpment is a continuous ring of cliffs and steep slopes separating the high interior plateau from the coastal lowlands. In some areas, it rises gradually. In others, it forms dramatic walls like those in the Drakensberg. This escarpment controls rainfall, river flow, settlement patterns, and even biodiversity. It's the backbone of South Africa's geography, quietly shaping everything everything around it. 24. A semi-desert shaped by ancient glaciers, indirectly. The Karoo's dryness isn't just about lack of rain, its basin-like shape and surrounding uplands limit moisture penetration from the coasts. But its sediment layers tell a deeper story. Long before it became arid, glaciers in Gondwana dumped vast amounts of sediment here. These layers hardened into rock that now resists erosion unevenly, producing the Karoo's flat-topped hills and mesas. The desert landscape is the final chapter of a story that began under ice hundreds of millions of years ago. 23. One of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth. South Africa's coastline spans 2 oceans and multiple current systems, creating extraordinary marine diversity. Cold upwelling along the west coast fuels plankton blooms that support massive fisheries, while warm eastern waters host coral reefs and tropical species. Nowhere else does a single country host such a sharp marine transition. This diversity extends to whales, sharks, seals, and seabirds, making South Africa one of the most biologically productive coastal regions on the planet. 22. The land where rivers run backward in floods. In parts of the Limpopo and Lowveld regions, extreme floods can temporarily reverse river flow. When upstream rainfall overwhelms downstream channels, water spreads across floodplains and pushes against the normal gradient. These rare but powerful events reshape channels, redistribute nutrients, and maintain fertile soils. They also reveal how flat and delicately balanced some of South Africa's river systems truly are. 21. A mountain range built almost entirely of sandstone. The Cederberg Mountains are sculpted from ancient sandstone deposited when South Africa lay beneath shallow seas. Over time, erosion carved the rock into towers, arches, and sheer cliffs that glow orange and red at sunset. The stone weathers into smooth sculptural forms unlike harder volcanic ranges. These mountains are also incredibly porous, storing water that feeds springs and sustains life in an otherwise dry region. 20. South Africa has its own lost coastline. Off the southern coast lies the Agelhas Bank, a broad, shallow continental shelf that was once dry land during Ice Age low sea levels. This exposed plain may have served as a refuge for early humans, offering rich food resources when inland regions were harsh. Archaeological evidence suggests this drowned landscape played a key role in human survival and innovation. Today, it's submerged, but its influence may still echo through human history. 19. A salt pan visible from space. The interior of South Africa hosts massive salt pans like the Kalahari's dry basins, which reflect sunlight so intensely they stand out in satellite images. These pans form where water briefly collects, then evaporates completely, leaving behind layers of salt and minerals. They mark ancient drainage systems that no longer function and are among the flattest natural surfaces on Earth. 18. A desert that isn't hot all the time. South Africa's deserts defy stereotypes. In places like the Karoo and Namib Fringe, winter nights regularly drop below freezing. Elevation, clear skies, and dry air allow heat to escape rapidly after sunset. The result is a land of extremes, where scorching days give way to icy nights, and life has adapted to survive both in rapid succession. 17. A landscape shaped by fire as much as water. Fire is a natural and essential force across much of South Africa. Ecosystems like fynbos and grasslands depend on periodic burning to regenerate. Many plants only release seeds after fire, and entire landscapes are structured around burn cycles. Geography controls where fires spread, how often they occur, and how ecosystems respond. Without fire, much of South Africa's natural vegetation would collapse. 16. The Highveld's invisible slopes. The Highveld appears flat, but it subtly slopes downward from east to west. This nearly imperceptible gradient controls major river systems, including tributaries of the Orange and Limpopo. Water divides here are so gentle that early settlers struggled to identify them. This hidden tilt shapes drainage across thousands of kilometers. 15. A coastline where dunes can swallow forests. Along parts of the eastern and southern coast, massive sand dunes migrate inland, burying vegetation in their path. Coastal winds and shifting currents feed these dune systems continuously. Forests can be smothered, then later re-emerge as dunes move on. It's a slow-motion geological conveyor belt that reshapes the land over decades. 14. A country with more caves than expected. South Africa's Dolomite and limestone regions host extensive cave systems, especially around Gauteng and the cradle of humankind. These caves form as acidic water dissolves rock, creating underground chambers and sinkholes. Some cave roofs collapse, reshaping the surface above. What looks stable from the surface may be hollow beneath. 13. The southernmost true coral reefs in Africa. South Africa's coral reefs lie at the very edge of where reef systems can survive. Located along the far northeastern coast, they endure cooler waters and stronger currents than most reefs worldwide. Their existence here is a delicate balance between tropical warmth and temperate conditions, making them especially sensitive to climate change. 12. A plateau lifted by the Earth itself. Southern Africa is slowly rising. Deep mantle processes push the crust upward, keeping the interior plateau elevated despite millions of years of erosion. This uplift explains why rivers cut deeply into the landscape instead of flattening it entirely. The land is literally being propped up from below. 11. Geography that shaped a nation's cities. South Africa's major cities exist where geography allowed them to. Cape Town grew around a natural harbor beneath a protective mountain. Johannesburg rose where gold lay beneath a high plateau. Durban expanded along a rare stretch of sheltered coastline on the Indian Ocean. The country's urban map is a direct reflection of its physical geography, written in stone, water, and elevation. Before moving on to the top 10, remember to join the geography family by subscribing to the channel and leaving your like. 10. The lowest point isn't the ocean. South Africa's lowest natural point is not along its vast coastline, but inland. Parts of the Kalahari Basin dip lower than some coastal areas due to long-term erosion and internal drainage. While the country has over 2,500 kilometers of coastline, much of its interior slowly sinks into ancient basins where water evaporates instead of flowing to the sea. These subtle depressions shape climate, soil salinity, and vegetation patterns in ways most people never notice. 9. A place where fog replaces rain. Along the west coast, especially in Namaqualand and the Namib Fringe, rainfall is so scarce that life survives almost entirely on fog. Cold Benguela, current waters chill the air, causing dense fog to roll inland at night. Plants and insects have evolved specialized surfaces to trap moisture directly from the air. Some beetles literally stand on dunes and let water condense on their backs. In these regions, fog is more reliable than rain and functions as the primary water source. 8. Rivers that cut straight through mountains. Several South African rivers ignore mountain barriers entirely, slicing directly through them instead of flowing around. These water gaps formed as rivers maintained their courses while the land slowly uplifted beneath them. Over millions of years, the rivers cut downward, carving deep gorges through rising terrain. The result is dramatic mountain passes and canyons that look impossible on a map, but make perfect sense in deep geological time. 7. The country hides one of Earth's oldest surfaces. Parts of South Africa's interior plateau are among the oldest continuously exposed land surfaces on Earth. These regions have avoided subduction, major faulting, and glaciation for hundreds of millions of years. While other continents were scraped clean by ice or crushed by tectonics, Southern Africa remained geologically stable. Some soils here began forming before dinosaurs existed, making the land itself older than most ecosystems on the planet. 6. A climate shaped by ocean currents, not latitude. Despite sitting well within the subtropics, South Africa's climate is wildly uneven. Cold Atlantic currents cool the west, while warm Indian Ocean currents heat the east. This creates sharp rainfall contrasts across relatively short distances. Deserts sit only a few hundred kilometers from lush coastal forests. Latitude alone cannot explain South Africa's weather. The oceans are the real architects. 5. A river that defines national borders but ignores them. The Limpopo River forms part of South Africa's border, yet its floodplain spreads freely across political lines. During major floods, the river expands into neighboring countries, erasing boundaries entirely. These flood cycles deposit fertile sediment that sustains agriculture and wildlife, but they also displace communities. The river behaves according to geology and rainfall, not maps. 4. A coastline still rebounding from ancient seas. Parts of South Africa's coast are still adjusting to long-term sea level changes. Raised beaches, fossilized dunes, and wave-cut terraces sit far above today's shoreline, marking previous ocean levels. These features show that the sea has advanced and retreated repeatedly over millions of years. The coast we see today is just a snapshot in an ongoing geological negotiation. 3. The land where ecosystems stack vertically. In some regions, especially along the Great Escarpment, ecosystems stack on top of one another with elevation. Drive a short distance uphill, and you pass through grassland, forest, montane scrub, and alpine conditions. Each layer hosts different species adapted to temperature, wind, and moisture changes. South Africa compresses what would be continental-scale ecological variation into vertical space. 2. A country built on mineral coincidence. South Africa's extraordinary mineral wealth is not evenly distributed. It's the result of rare geological coincidences aligning over billions of years. Ancient river systems, volcanic intrusions, continental collisions, and erosion all concentrated resources into accessible zones. Gold, platinum, chromium, manganese, and diamonds occur together in ways almost unmatched globally. Geography didn't just shape the land, it shaped global industry. 1. A landscape that records Earth's entire story. Few places on Earth preserve as much of the planet's history in one country as South Africa. From ancient oceans and supercontinents to volcanic floods, deserts, reefs, fossil forests, and the rise of humanity itself, the land records nearly every major chapter of Earth's past. South Africa isn't defined by a single geographic feature. It's defined by continuity, a place where deep time is still written into the ground beneath your feet. After learning these 50 facts about South Africa, tell us, which one did you like best, or which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Let's see how many of us chose the same fact. And if you think we've forgotten something or want to add your own interesting tidbit, we'd love to hear it. Your feedback helps us improve each video. Also, if you noticed any pronunciation mistakes, thank you for your patience. We strive to improve with every video. And speaking of videos, there's another one playing right now so you can continue exploring the geography of our beautiful world. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and like so we can keep learning together. See you in the next one.